no one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hello, folks. This is Steve Moore. This is the More Money Show. And, of course, that is the theme song of the More Money Show. Give me money. Give me money. And we're here to help you make money and to save money and to earn money. And so I appreciate so much our loyal listeners. Our ratings are fantastic. They get better every week thanks to you. And I always say we have the smartest listening audience in America, and it happens to be true. I know that because I take callers almost every week, and we'll try to call. We're live, by the way. We're live and in color. We're one of the few programs on the weekend, other than the Larry Kudlow show that comes on before mine, that is live, fresh programming. And we're not talking about, we're not talking about selling, some product or something. We're talking about the issues of the day, trying to educate you on politics, finance, and the economy. And I say it every week, but I'll say it again. It's the highlight of my week to be in front of this microphone talking directly to you. And, again, thank you for tuning in as usual. By the way, we're on, live every weekend from 1 to 3. And I know other stations pick this up at different times throughout the country. We have stations in Los Angeles. We have stations in Kansas City. We have stations in Chicago. We have stations in Maine, in Georgia, in Florida. So it is just a real thrill to be on the show with you. Okay. So the first issue I want to address, and by the way, we have a jam-packed, show today. We will be taking your calls at some point in the show, but I have a bunch of really great guests coming on. I want to start with this. What is going on with New York and New Jersey? What the heck is going on? When you look at what is going on with respect to the population of those two states, they are declining. New York and New Jersey are in a decline that's been happening for 20 years now, but has really sped up over the last 10 years. And there's a little song by Billy Joel. And Kelvin, if you could play just a minute or so of that song, I think it describes exactly what is going on.
Is that all you get for your money? And it seems such a waste of time. If that's what it's all about, Mama, if that's moving up, then I'm moving out.
And that's what's going on in New Jersey, folks. It's so sad to see a great state that helped the industrial revolution of this country is being bled to death because of high taxes, high regulation, big government, too much crime, and it's sad to see. And it is also happening, by the way, in New York. And so we have some of you have probably seen it if you live in the Northeast and if you live in New York and New Jersey. We have put these big billboards up throughout the state, basically with the Billy Joel theme. The people are not moving up in New Jersey and New York. They are moving out. And the numbers are incredible. New York has lost 2 million people on net, because people are moving out. And New Jersey has lost 500,000 people. 500,000 people have left that state. And they are taking their money with them. They're taking their buying power. They're taking their businesses with them. So New York has lost, are you ready for this? Over the last 10 years, I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to mention it again, $500 billion excuse me, of cumulative income has left New York, and it's gone to other states. It's gone to Florida. It's gone to Texas. It's gone to Arizona. It's gone to Utah and Idaho. You are losing your greatest resource in New York and New Jersey. And your greatest resource is your children, your young people, and your people, just your population. The businesses are moving. They're taking their money with them. That has got to stop. All right. That has got to stop. And it's going to stop when taxes come down, when regulations are loosened, when it becomes more pro-business state. I'm not taking any stance in any of these elections that are coming up in both New York and New Jersey. That's for you to decide yourself. But I want to tell you the status current are not working. And if those conditions continue for another 4 years, I believe that Wall Street will leave. I believe that you will have, remember you all know about the famous bull in front of Wall Street. I mean, there's going to be a crane that's going to lift that thing up, put it on a truck and move it to Dallas or move it to Miami or somewhere else. So this is urgent, folks. This is not a fire drill. This is urgent. New York and New Jersey have to heal themselves. And this is the responsibility of the residents of those states. You determine who runs the city and state, not the politicians, of course, are the one who makes the decisions, but you're the ones who elect the politicians. I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm just simply saying you should vote. You should vote next week. Or I think in some of these, I think both states have early voting that started Monday. Have your voice heard, because if you don't vote, you can't complain about how these states are destroying themselves. We can fix New York. We can fix New Jersey. I really believe it can happen. I've seen it happen when Rudy Giuliani came in and saved New York. It can happen again. It must happen again. So please, folks, if you live in New York, New Jersey, pay attention to what's going on. Listen to what the candidates are saying and make a wise choice. We'll be right back, folks. This is the More Money Show, and we are all over this great country.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for tuning in across the USA. We are live. We are in color. And my next guest, to change directions a little bit, is my good friend and colleague, Scott Atlas, who is one of the world's health experts. He's the guy who got it 100% correct when COVID hit, gave Donald Trump great advice, which Donald Trump often took, not always, but often did. And I wanted to talk to him about kind of where we stand today with public health. What are the lessons that we should have learned, but probably have not learned? And there's nobody better to ask than Scott Atlas. So, Scott, thanks so much for joining.
Happy to be here, Steve.
So, Scott, you are with the Hoover Institute?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and one of the most esteemed think tanks. So I'm jealous. That's a great place to be. But you also served the president very ably and wisely during COVID. And here we are 5 years later. And sometimes I worry that people have not learned the lessons. We did a lot wrong. As you know. You were one of the first people, you and I and Phil Kerpen, put out the alert about how dangerous lockdowns would be. So can you kind of summarize where we are today? And before you answer that question, I'm going to tell you something that is just disgusting, which is that my alma mater, University of Illinois, had their Man of the Year award a year ago, and they gave Anthony Fauci their Man of the Year award, which is just makes me embarrassed.
Well, I share the embarrassment, Steve, because you may not know I'm a graduate of University of Illinois.
I did not know that. You're an Illini?
Yes, I am. So I still follow college basketball, but I don't follow when they give awards to people like Fauci.
Yeah. So where are we?
Well, the problem with the aftermath of COVID is we have, as a society, sort of instead of learning the lessons and making sure people understood the truth, we have sort of turned the page, I feel. And I'm very fearful that people are still misinformed and therefore susceptible to having this debacle happen again. And there's a reason why we've turned the page as a society, because the people in powerful positions and the influential people were so wrong about the lockdowns, about the school closures, about masks being effective, about forcing vaccines, that they're humiliated and they're interested in turning the page rather than admit the error. And again, the issue is most people are left with lack of information about the data, because the data showed that the lockdowns not only did not stop the spread or protect people, but they literally killed millions of people, particularly the poor.
Right. Yep. And that is exactly why we need to make sure we don't repeat these mistakes again. Just before you came on, Scott Atlas, I was talking about what's happened in New York and New Jersey over the last 10 years and very dramatic population losses in New York and New Jersey. Now, that predated COVID, but it sped up dramatically during COVID, where people just left New York and at least half of those people never went back.
Right. And a big driver of that, Steve, as you know, is really not economic, I believe. It's more, although that is a driver, but the real cause was people saw their children being destroyed because we had a disease, COVID, which was extremely low risk for anything serious for healthy children, minuscule, yet they closed the schools. And this is very destructive, not only with learning loss, which received some attention, but with the psychological harms, massive impacts on kids who need socialization, who need their peers, who need interaction. And we saw dramatic spiking of depression, anxiety, hospitalizations for severe weight, eating disorders, self-harms, kids slashing their wrists. It's very, very sad, tragic what we did to our kids as a society.
So what would you say, for our audience? We have a nationwide audience on this show, and I want to know, what would you say are the 3 or 4 most important lessons that you think we either have learned or have not learned? But what are the takeaways from this tragic governmental response to COVID?
Well, number one lesson to me is we live in a free society. We can't have mandates and complete takeover of individual rights that are supposedly guaranteed in the Constitution. But when rights are guaranteed and then they can be taken away under any kind of declaration of so-called emergencies, then they're not guaranteed freedoms. We can't have a society like that. And the big way to get people to do things, a second lesson that people in leadership positions must understand, is that you inform the public. You don't need to mandate anything. You show them the facts. You make sure you're giving the data. People, we're intelligent people. We trust people. We must trust people in a free society. And, the third lesson is
Hold on just 1 second. Hold on. Because this is really so important what you're saying. And I want to just put a little asterisk behind your second lesson, which is, what my buddy Phil Kerpen has said, and I think you've said this too, is the one thing you definitely don't want to do is panic people, which is exactly what the government did.
People are calmed by knowing that in a leadership position, the facts. You understand what's going on, even if you don't know what to do. And in fact, when I went to Washington to help advise President Trump in August of 2020, the first thing I kept saying was he has to get back on there and give the data at his press conferences. They had stopped those press conferences, if you may remember. And I said, even if you don't know what to do, you must tell the public, this is the data, we're aware of what's going on, reassuring them rather than somehow creating some uncertainty, because uncertainty causes fear, and fear causes a really irregular, erratic behavior.
Well, the problem, as you know, that happened back then, because you were there, was Fauci was contradicting everything Trump was saying, and that's why he became a national hero.
Absolutely. Fauci and Deborah Birx, who had sort of a lower profile, but she was in charge of the task force. And the task force in the White House wrote all the guidance to the state's governors. So the governors were getting the so-called official federal policy from the task force, not from President Trump. And you may remember that this was, of course, an election season, a very volatile public. Yep. And that also added to the mix of the sort of misinformation. But another point I want to make about lessons is that we had censorship by the media, by the social media. We had Twitter, we had YouTube, we had Facebook taking down posts, not just regular people, but they took down my posts as advisor to the president. You'd think the public should hear what the president's advisor is saying during an emergency. And as I pointed that out in the White House, the censorship, my friends in the White House told me, well, they also took down President Trump himself. Yeah. So, we had a society where really they were obscuring information. And the reason people censor information is not just to shut someone up. This is very important. They censor people to fool the public, to make it seem like there is only one opinion here, there is only one interpretation, and everyone else is not just an outlier, but is dangerous. It was sort of the tools of propaganda.
Sure. So one of the things you were very effective at, I was talking to Governor DeSantis not long ago, and he was saying one of the people he called for advice, because remember, governors, one of the things Trump did that really is underappreciated, in my opinion, Scott, and I'm talking to the great medical expert, Scott Atlas, is he made a very wise decision to let the states decide what their how they would respond. And you had
100% agree, yes.
Yeah, and the red states opened up in general, and the blue states stayed shut down. But we learned from what each other was doing. And what did we learn from the states?
Well, what we learned was that the states that opened earlier did better, and this was quantified by your friend and colleague Phil Kerpen. And reality is that the states that opened better, the states that opened the schools, the states that opened businesses, did better with regard to not just illness generally, or at least as well with the illness, but also economic destruction and devastation. And that economic destruction is severe because it's not just money, it's lives. Lives are lost when the economy tanks.
So, Scott, we got 20 seconds left. Can you tell people, you wrote a book about this, did you not?
Yes, I did. I wrote a book on the experience in the White House called The Plague Upon Our House.
Okay, well, Scott Atlas, thanks so much for joining, folks. This is The More Money Show, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for joining. I was talking earlier at the top of the show about what is happening in New York and New Jersey with respect to the big losses of population and income as people fill up their moving vans and move out. And we played that Billy Joel song, Moving Out, because people are not moving up and they are moving out of New Jersey and New York. And that is a tragedy, because New York City is our empire city. It's the most important city in the world. And we want to make sure that New York City remains prosperous. So I wanted to bring on John McLaughlin, who is one of the top pollsters in the country. And I often turn to him for getting the pulse of the nation. So, John, thanks for joining the More Money Show.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back with you, Steve.
Okay, so we do not take sides in elections here at WABC. So all I want from you, if I may, is just what is happening, what you're seeing in the polls, because we are assiduous in not trying to influence, voters. Everyone has different opinions about these candidates, but could you give us a sense of what is happening in these two big elections that everybody in the country is focusing on? By the way, we have a nationwide audience in New York, in the mayor's race, which is huge, and in New Jersey with the governor's race, which I believe are the two top elections coming up next week.
Well, the one thing, New Jersey's close. I mean, you've got polls that are out there, the media polls that you can look at, and you know, when you think about Ciarelli, he was 4 years ago at this point in time, he was down around 10 points, but Murphy was hovering around 50 to 51, and that's a bad sign for an incumbent,
right?
Particularly in New Jersey.
Yep.
And New Jersey was a state where during the Trump campaign, when we were polling there for President Trump, when Joe Biden was in it, we were tied. And then when he dropped out, we repolled, and, you know, we had to collectively reallocate our resources to the 7 battleground states because all of a sudden Harris had over $1.5 billion. And so we didn't spend money in New Jersey, but we only lost by 6 points. And when you look at the popular vote that President Trump gained, a third of the popular votes that we got compared to 2020 were made in New York and New Jersey. So the improvements there actually allowed us to, win the popular vote nationally. So New Jersey, with Ciarelli, when you're looking at, when Rutgers Eagleton says it's 50 for Sherrill, the Democrat, and 45 for Ciarelli, it's close. And Kellyanne Conway, our good friend, she had a super PAC poll last week where Ciarelli is only down 3. Early voting starts today. So Ciarelli and Sherrill are in a very close race, and you got to watch the early voting because what they'll be looking for is if the Democrats underperform in certain parts of New Jersey. And what's interesting is I do a lot of polling in the New York suburbs. So people have asked me about the 2 debates that just happened for mayor, and I'm like, the one who won was Bruce Blakeman in Nassau County. The Republicans, I mean, people don't realize the suburbs, like in Nassau County, Bruce Blakeman has done a great job. He's cut taxes. He's hired more police officers, the safest county in America. So all of a sudden, in this 8-point Democratic county, which Trump carried last year, we've got Bruce Blakeman doing very well. Mondami, I will tell you, is Mondami has a 25 favorable in Nassau County, 69 unfavorable. And you've got the same thing in Rockland County for the county executive Ed Day, and also for Steve Newhouse in Orange County. So the suburbs are in revolt of what's going on in the city, because in the mayoral polls in the city, you have polling where it's still a three-way race because you've got Mondami as the Democrat on the Democratic line, you've got Curtis Sliwa on the Republican line, and you've got Cuomo is running as an independent, and you still have Eric Adams on the ballot, but he's endorsed Cuomo. So there was a poll that came out in the beginning of the week from AARP Gotham, and they had Mondami 43 and Cuomo 29 and Sliwa at 19. And the tough part is you've got a situation where Cuomo is still seen negatively. He was 37 favorable, 48 unfavorable.
He was not a very effective governor, that's for sure.
And Mondami is 48 to 45 in that poll, positive. And you've got Sliwa negative 35 to 47. So how do you stop Mondami when his negatives are lower than the alternatives? And what's been missing is they're starting to focus on his positions right now because, you haven't had, you've been associated with Committee on Unleashed Prosperity and other conservative organizations. When you're running against the socialists, you tell people that the guy wants to close the jails, let the criminals out.
Yeah.
He wants to legalize that ad. Hard drugs. Yes.
Yeah. That Cuomo ad's pretty hard hitting.
Right, and he wants to legalize prostitution.
Okay, so we only have about 90 seconds left, and I'd like to that's a great summary of what's going on in New York and New Jersey. Thank you, John. So give us in just the last 90 seconds, and I so appreciate you carving out some time on your Saturday afternoon. Give us a sense of the mood of the voters these days, because the one word I hear all the time from other pollsters is apprehensive. But how would you describe the mood of Americans today in terms of as they look at the economy and the country and the direction of the nation?
Well, it's different by the echo chambers they're in. If you're in the 37% that are conservative and pro-Trump, and you listen to ABC radio and you watch like Newsmax, Fox News, you're happy. You're saying the country's in the right direction. Donald Trump gets great job approval ratings. If you're in the 36%, that's CNN, MSNBC, they're panicked. They're distraught.
You're not happy. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but the middle echo chamber is of people that really don't pay attention to the news as much. They're leaning towards the president because they're seeing the economy start to percolate. The markets are up. and a lot of them have 401ks, and they have and also what you're seeing is they're starting to get better paying jobs, particularly small businesses. There's some economic growth from the tax cuts.
Yep.
So the pro-growth tax cuts, and
a lot of investment.
Yep. Right.
A lot of investment.
And that's the most important right now, is to create good paying jobs and better paying jobs and growing the economy so we can win the midterms next year. So
that's John McLaughlin. Sorry.
Watch out for the fake media polls, though.
The fake media polls. So, John, you are the best. I know I grabbed you at the last minute. Appreciate you coming on. That's a great analysis of what is happening politically and with the people's views on the economy. Folks, we will be right back. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is The More Money Show, and that is my second favorite money song, Can't Buy Me Love. Waiting for our next guest. He's running a couple minutes late, and so while we wait for him to come on, I would like to ask you what you think about this incredible gambling crisis and scandal that is going on that has affected not just the NBA, but all sports, but especially the NBA. And I wonder what you think about this. I have to say that it puzzles me that you have these guys who are making tens of millions of dollars, and in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars playing professional sports. I mean, what a great gig is that, right? By making 10, 20, 50, $100 million a year to play these sports. And then you would squander that and you would put your job and essentially your employer, which is the NBA, at risk by, gambling and making an extra $50,000 or $100,000. I don't understand the logic of it. I remember the first big gambling scandal since the the Black Sox scandal that happened, 100 years ago, was what happened with Michael Jordan, who, we don't know the whole story there, but was apparently gambling on games. And, that was, I think you all know that's why he was banished for a year to play baseball and then came back. And by the way, I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan. I'm from Chicago. And so, we won 6 championships with MJ. But, just what I'm reading, and learning from these news reports is very disturbing to me. You cannot have a professional sports league and you're not going to have fans. You're not going to fill these stadiums and arenas if people believe that the games are rigged. And this is something that the NBA is going to have to take some very, very stern measures to ban the people who are involved in this, and then big fines. I know that this is something that's been investigated by the FBI. By the way, I'm not so sure the government needs to be involved in this. I'm not. We have a lot of problems in this country. The fact that there might be rigging in gambling, I don't think should be the highest priority of our law enforcement. But I do think that as someone who loves sports, this is deeply, deeply disturbing. Also disturbing that according to some of these allegations, if you're following this story, that there was cheating going on in the poker games that were being played, where they had apparently cameras beneath that were beneath the table so that the players could read the hands of the other players, which obviously is cheating, par excellence. And so, I'm very disturbed by this. And one of the takeaways, though, that I have of this is some people say, oh, well, you should make gambling illegal. No. That's exactly the wrong way to go, because then that's going to even lead to more, cheating and more scandal. I think you just have to allow gambling, but you have to make sure that the players playing in the games are not gambling. And this actually goes back to, Pete Rose. And it bothers me quite a bit that we're seeing this kind of, irresponsibility of people who made their fortunes playing these sports that would then ruin them by the gambling scandal. In the second hour, by the way, I will be taking a lot of your calls, and I'd love to hear what you think about this. You can tell I'm upset about it. And I'm not so sure what the solution is, but it's just outrageous. And I do think the people who are involved in the gambling scandals should be banned, just like back in the infamous Black Sox scandal. Remember, shoeless Joe Jackson, say it ain't so, Joe. And he was banned for life from baseball. And he was one of the, top players of his era. We may have to take those kinds of very stern stances if we want to return to the integrity of the game. Okay, Mr. Producer, have we found our guest yet, or should we keep going?
He's right to voicemail.
Okay, so let me then bring up another subject that I think is really critical to where we are in this country right now, and that is energy policy. And I want to let you know that in our hotline this week, and by the way, I hope everyone listening to this show, the More Money Show, is getting our More Money hotline. And I'm not selling you anything, folks, because it is absolutely free. But it is one of the most important things you can read in all humility, because I help write this with about 5 or 6 other people. This is a service we provide to you for free. It costs nothing, and there's no even advertising. It's just free information about the economy, about politics, about finance. If you're listening to the More Money Show, then you should be getting the More Money hotline. And you can get that by going to unleashprosperity.com. Do it right now. Unleashprosperity.com. Push the button for hotline. You can read it in 5 or 6 minutes every morning, but it has some insights on what's going on, the key points on the economy that are so critical for you to understand if you want to make more money. And we talk a lot about energy policy. We talk about fiscal policy. We talk about politics. And Newt Gingrich, my good friend, the former Speaker of the House, said it's the first thing he reads in the morning. Fred Smith, the great CEO of FedEx, who recently passed, said, Steve, this is the my caffeine in the morning. So I think you'll enjoy it. Just go to unleashprosperity.com. But one of the stories we had the other day was about what's happening with energy policy. And I'm just going to give you the headline on this because it's an amazing story, folks. This is amazing. The United States is producing more oil and gas and coal today than any time in history. And this is one of the reasons you're seeing, not one of the reasons, this is the primary reason why you're seeing gasoline in most markets of the country at about $2.98 a gallon. I think that was the last time I checked, that was the national average from the AAA. $2.98 a gallon. When's the last time we saw the price of gasoline less than $3? Do you remember, folks, when it was $5 a gallon under Biden, because he declared war on American energy? Trump is drill, baby, drill. And by producing more and more oil and gas, we are driving. This is simple economics, right? If the supply of something goes up, what happens to its price? I know a lot of the PhD economists don't understand this, and I know a lot of the people at the Federal Reserve don't understand this, but if you increase the supply of something, its price goes down. And that's why we've seen dramatic reductions in gas prices, just as Trump predicted, because we have this shale revolution. But the other thing that's tangentially related to this is coal. So we've been hearing for the last 5 years a lie by the media and the energy people that there is a grand transition, a green transition going on towards wind and solar power and batteries. Now the batteries, that's happening. There is more and more investment in batteries, and I think that could be incredibly important to our economy over the next 5 and 10 and 20 years. But wind and solar are not making virtually any progress. In fact, even under Biden, after spending hundreds of billions of dollars, there's still a fringe and kind of irrelevant form of energy. What is happening around the world is that so many of the countries, especially China, are turning to, are you ready for this? Coal, which, the left, that's the dirtiest form of coal, energy. And by the way, natural gas is much cleaner than coal. And I don't understand why the environmentalists are against natural gas, because one of the reasons we've been able to reduce our carbon emissions, I think most of you have listened to this show long enough to know, because I say this all the time, the United States has reduced its carbon emissions more than any other country. And it's not because of solar and wind power. It's because we have transitioned towards cheap and plentiful and abundant and Made in America natural gas. And so, but coal is making a comeback, and China right now, as we speak, is building like 25 new coal plants. So they are not all in on climate change. They are doing exactly, they may say they are. The Chinese are like the old Soviets. They may say they're doing it, but they're not. They're not doing it. They're doing the opposite. They are investing in huge amounts of coal because coal is an efficient form of energy. Now, it is true, they are building windmills and they are building sundials and the solar panels, but they're not doing it because they want to get it for themselves. They are selling that to stupid countries in Europe and stupid United States, which is going to tether themselves to forms of energy that don't produce enough power to keep our economy functioning. So that's an amazing story. A big headline in one of the major newspapers that I saw on Thursday that was the world used more coal last year in 2024 than any other year. I'm a big supporter of coal, by the way. And if we're going to use coal, we should get the coal from the United States because we have the cleanest coal. We actually have environmental standards. They don't. And that also applies. I was talking with Larry Kudlow on his show, which precedes this show, about what's going on with the mineral production in this country. And coal, by the way, is a mineral. We need to be mining again, folks. And we have very safe and secure and environmentally friendly mining policies. We haven't been doing mining in this country for 25 years. It's a scandal. We are now facing a cartel, essentially, that is China and Russia, our two enemies that are producing most of the minerals that we need, the precious minerals, the rare earth minerals that are necessary for our technology industry, for our advanced manufacturing industry, for many of our weapon systems that we use for our military. We have basically turned that over to China and Russia. This is insanity. This is so unpatriotic that we would basically take a country like the United States that is endowed with more mineral resources than any other country in the world, and yet we're not producing it. We're not mining it. It is worth, according to Ned Mamula, the head of the U.S. Geological Survey, is one of the top geologists in the world. He says that the value of these resources, are you sitting down, folks? $12 trillion in the mountains of Colorado, in the mountains of Utah, in the mountains of the Dakotas, and all over this country. We are sitting on a treasure chest, and we need to be going after that and using those assets that we are endowed with to make sure that we are not captive to Beijing and to other countries that hate us. So I'm very disturbed by that development. And we have got to start mining in this country. We have to keep drilling, because when we do, we will no longer be captive to our enemies. Folks, this is the More Money Show. Appreciate your listening to the first hour of the show, and we'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, folks, this is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for joining our second hour. We're going to go right to one of the financial gurus of the country, who is the smartest person I know in terms of investment advice and what's going on in this crazy American economy. I'm talking about the great David Bahnsen, who is one of the top guys. You see him all the time on Fox Business News, Fox News. He's the author of two books that I talk about all the time. One is called Full Time, which is about the virtues of work. And the other one, which is also a favorite of mine, called There's No Free Lunch. So this guy has all the answers when it comes to money. So David Bahnsen, thanks for joining. And I'm going to have to ask you a question that's been asked throughout the ages. Can money buy you love?
No, it can't buy you love, and I think that the Beatles had that part right. But I always do say that if you're going to have a life of broken relationships and broken heart, you may as well have a few bucks.
You're right. And what's the old saying? You can, if you have a choice of marrying a rich person or a poor person, why not go for the rich person? Incidentally, David, this is my 10th anniversary today with my lovely wife, Ann. So want to do a little shout out for her. And so, tell us about, David, your take on the economy today. I want to ask you in particular, about two things that I find confusing as an economist myself. One is what's happened with the gold price, which keeps soaring, and the other is the dollar, which has been weak. I don't get that. But first, give us your sense of how things are going in the overall U.S. economy.
Well, first of all, Steve, happy anniversary and hearty congratulations to you and Ann. 10 years goes by quick.
It's amazing. By the way, David, we defied all the odds. People said it wasn't going to last 10 years. So we did it.
Well, I am very happy for you, my friend. I think that the economy is a mixed bag. And I think that is something that we're going to need to be used to for a little while, because it doesn't play into any narrative right now of those who want to say it's the strongest economy we've ever seen in history, and those who want to say we're knocking on the door of a recession. I don't think either thing is true. Let's put the gold price thing to bed pretty quickly, because that's really easy. Okay. It's China. They are the margin. They bought like crazy. They have bought a ton of gold. Now, it has come down about 7 or 8% pretty quickly in the last couple of weeks, but you basically have had a trader's moment where gold has had a big run, and it is in concert with a substantial increase of Chinese buying. And central banks around the world are generally the only thing that does move gold substantially. And what people have said is, gold goes up because all these countries are running big deficits, or central banks are acting crazy. And I just want to point out that you can't make up a decade where central banks and governments acted more irresponsibly than 2011 to 2021. You had all the QE, all the zero interest rates, trillions of dollars of negative yields around the world. Right. And gold didn't go up $1 for 10 years.
Why is that?
It was because gold is not really acting in concert with what people believe is happening in policy. Gold just got back to its inflation-adjusted price of $19.80 a few weeks ago. Gold is just something that people make a lot of money on trading, and it tends to go up when central banks are buying a lot of it, and it tends not to when central banks aren't. China's been a big buyer.
So one thing I saw, David, I saw a chart the other day that we'll probably put in the hotline on Monday or Tuesday, and it showed a lot of what you're saying. What you're saying is exactly right, that the Chinese are buying gold. And what was interesting, and Larry Kudlow talks about this on his show, that while they're buying gold, they're selling U.S. securities.
Yeah, and it's something I kind of want to talk to Larry about, because what we know, Steve, is that they had $1.3 trillion of Treasury bonds 12 years ago, and they have about $800 billion now.
That's a pretty big sale, right? That's a pretty big sell-off.
Well, but it isn't. I don't think that any of it was sold. It's possible. We don't have any way of knowing. I think it was Treasury bonds that matured that they didn't reinvest.
Oh, I see. So they just weren't buying.
That's right. They weren't replacing bonds that matured.
I see.
And so what BlackRock and Goldman Sachs and others have speculated is that China is still buying U.S. securities, but instead of treasuries, they're buying Fannie Freddie. They're buying mortgage securities. That are still going to provide the currency issue that they're trying to affect, but not add to their U.S. Treasury position.
Okay, so the bottom line here then, what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm summarizing what you're saying is not exactly right, but that we should not be too concerned about the rising price of gold?
Well, no, I don't think there's anything to be concerned about in the rising price of gold. I think there's plenty of things to be concerned about, but I don't think it's
but not gold price.
The gold price that tells you. Yeah, I think.
But hold on, Dave, because this is an important point. Because I've always have said that gold is basically, people buy gold for two reasons. They buy it because they're worried about inflation, right? It's a hedge against inflation, and they worry about a financial catastrophe, and they rush to gold. So that's why it worries me when gold prices go up.
And I understand that a lot of people have held on to that idea, but I think, Steve, that it is perception, not a reality.
Okay.
I think that in the 1970s, gold prices went up a lot, and you had a lot of things that were going wrong. But the other periods that we've seen since, it's been a trade and not a real substantive economic correlation. So I think that there is always going to be a sociological way, and that way you said is true, that there are people who believe gold is a hedge. Gold is even with inflation since 1980, even.
That's amazing.
And then there's things like the stock market that are 63 times better than inflation.
Okay, so let me ask you about then the other thing that worries me, which, and I haven't been following it as, that much lately, but the dollar has fallen since Trump came into office, was elected, and I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, he doesn't exactly say he wants a real strong dollar, right?
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
And both Stephen Nyren and at times Secretary Bessent, and I'm a big fan of Secretary Bessent.
Me too.
A little less so of Steve these days, but they both have talked about the need to see the dollar come down a little in terms of various competitive issues with some of our trading partners. I'm a strong dollar guy.
Me too. Me too.
I believe that it's not a good idea for our president or Treasury Secretary to ever be talking down the dollar. But the one thing I will say, Steve, is when the dollar's down about 7 or 8% on a trade-weighted basis this year, but it was up 20% on a trade-weighted basis for the 2 years before that, it's really more just sort of letting off some steam. It isn't yet going down like it has in certain weak dollar periods. So I think you're just not going to get clarity on where the dollar is going until we get clarity on where our trade deal with China is going. That's the really big issue with the dollar.
So that's the other thing I wanted to ask you about. I'm talking to the great David Bahnsen, who is one of the top financial analysts in the country. He is the author of many books, including my favorite one. You should get this. Now that you're starting to look at maybe Christmas presents, there's no free lunch. I just love that book, David. As you know, I learned so much from that. But I wanted to ask you about the trade issue and the tariff issue, because you and I are pretty conventional free traders, and Trump is not a conventional free trader, although, the people who would defend him on his trade a tariff position is that he's trying to get better deals for the U.S. How do you see things right now? It's been topsy and turvy for the last 9 months. Where do we stand on this issue right now in terms of how tariffs are affecting the market?
If there was anything that captured how much things have changed in the last 6-7 months, it was Friday morning. I was up, as I always am, at 3:45 in the morning, and the first story of the day was this thing with Canada, where apparently they had upset the president by Ford in Toronto and run this commercial with Reagan quotes. And Trump said, all talks with Canada are off. We're going back to 100% tariffs. And then the Dow was up 500 points. The market is not paying any attention to it anymore at all, and I don't think the trading partners are.
Okay, so hold on that. This is an important point, because I've been saying that, if, as I kind of casually, you look at it, and as a professional, I look at more casually, that every time Trump talks about tariffs, the market has gone down, and every time he's announced a trade deal, the market has gone up. But you're saying now the market is not paying as much attention to these trade wars?
Well, they are paying attention to real trade wars. They're not paying attention to threats of trade wars.
The rhetoric. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I think it's been overdone. And if the markets are blowing it off, I think the trading partners are blowing it off too. There is real risk in what's going to happen out of these negotiations with China. Mm-hmm. And President Trump has really talked down some of those expectations, even as recently as this morning. It's the first time I heard him say, yeah, we're going to have to give up a little bit ourselves here. Where normally the rhetoric has been, his negotiating tactic has been a little more bravado. So my suspicion is that there's going to be big winners on these trade deals, and obviously NVIDIA and some of the big tech companies of America have been winners so far. My concern, Steve, is the small businesses that I think don't have the same pricing power, don't have the same negotiating clout. I think that there's some real damage being done out there.
Well, David, those are great words of wisdom. Incidentally, we've really only got 1 minute left. China, China's economy is not doing that well as I look at it. How do you see things in China in just our last minute?
Yeah, I think they're very concerning, very weak. I think that they have increased what they're exporting to other countries, but their exports to us are down. But they are dealing with a very deflationary mess out of their real estate bubble. The difference that China has is, of course, politically. With a totalitarian, communist-type government, they don't really have to worry as much about being popular, but they have done a terrible job because they don't have freedom in pivoting their economy to be more consumer and producer balanced. And so they just lack the economic strength that a freer economy would give them. And then they're facing what I think is going to be big demographic challenges as well.
Me too. Well, I will take freedom and democracy any day of the week, as I know you would as well. David Bahnsen, thanks so much for joining on this Saturday afternoon, and we'll be right back, folks. This is the More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. Boy, I'm exhausted already. We've had so many amazing guests on, and now we have on next, backed by popular demand. We talked to him a couple of weeks ago and got such a positive response from our listeners that I wanted to make sure we got him back on. Julio Gonzalez, who is the good friend, one of the top tax experts in the country, and a tax advisor, and advises small businesses and families, and does an amazing job of it. And his latest book, which is doing really well, I see it got 5 stars on Amazon. Congratulations, Julio. I love the title of the book, Why Billionaires Love the Tax Code. And then the subtitle is Follow the IRS's Lead to Build Wealth. Julio, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
So the book is doing great. Congratulations. And I am so pleased to have you back on. Let's start with what you started to tell us last time you were on, and kind of complete that conversation because we ran out of time. You were talking about all of the kind of loopholes and credits and all of these things that billionaires are able to take advantage of that many ordinary middle-class Americans can't. Give us kind of summary of how you view the tax code today.
Steve, I look at the tax code and say that every page, 2 million pages of tax code, every page has an advantage on how to lower our taxes, right? So the tax code is not how to pay more. That's the tax rates, right? The tax code, which you brought down so beautifully in the Big Beautiful Bill. So thank you for that. But the tax codes, every page there is like, how do we reduce the taxes? How do we reduce the taxes? What can you write off? So, we're just trying to dissect those 2 million pages and maybe put a couple thousand tips that the billionaires use every day and give those to every small business owner, right, to take advantage of it.
So, Julio, I'm not a rich guy. I am doing pretty well. Trump has been very good for the Moore family, no question about it. But I'm not a multimillionaire by any means, but I'm paying right now because I live in a fairly high tax state. You're there in Florida, so you pay, you're the smart one. You live in Florida where there's no state income tax, but I'm paying almost half of my income in federal and state income taxes. So there must be ways I can lower my tax liability.
Yeah, Steve, right away. The big tip move. Get out of that state. Right?
I used to live in Virginia, and we moved across the river to Maryland, and I'm paying through the wazoo, and I'm just sick of it. So yes, I'm trying to move to where you are. You're there in Palm Beach, Florida, but there's been such a real estate rush there that we can't afford it right now. But you're right. I mean, one good tip, and this is what Americans are doing, as you know, Julio, they are moving from high tax to low tax states.
Yeah, there's a big exodus out of the Northeast right down to Florida.
That's for sure.
They want to lower their taxes by 10 to 12%, maybe 18% if you're looking in New York. And so that's a big move that can help right away and forever, right? Because, Florida's not going to start raising taxes anytime soon.
One of the things that our accountant recommended to us, I wonder what you think about this, Julio, was to put as much money as we could in 401k and, plans because it's tax deferred investment. What do you think of 401ks?
I love that idea, Steve, because, and you can do IRAs, 401ks. Yep. So you can do self-directed programs. I think it's so smart, right? Because, Steve, you're reducing the taxes by that amount, right? So you're taking a taxable income and moving it to non-taxable and put it into your retirement. And then in a lot of these accounts, you can just borrow and pay yourself interest. So amazing. I think that's a home run. I think that's a great strategy.
How much would you
people do it.
Yeah. How much would you say, Julio, because I'm pretty typical. I don't really, even though I'm an expert on tax policy, I'm not an expert at all on the tax code. And when people go to see an advisor like you, and you're really one of the top, what's the name of the company again?
Engineer Tax Services.
Yeah, right. And you're one of the tops in the country. How much can you save, when someone comes in to get your advice, how much are you able to shave off of their tax bill usually?
Well, I think about it this way, Steve. Most billionaires, most Fortune 500 companies pay between 9 to 11% of net income in taxes, right? Because of how they maneuver, use the tax code. Yep. And most people, individuals, small business owners, middle America pay 40 to 50%.
That's amazing. So, that's that's a great and important point. And it's Bernie Sanders say, well, the rich don't pay their fair share because there are all these, special privileges for people. It's not the rate. You want low rates and a broad base, right? And we've moved away from that. And it is a shame that the rich people are the ones who take advantage of these tax shelters and not middle income people are really struggling.
True. And all I tell in this book is let's act like the billionaires. Let's follow their code. Let's get your taxable income that you're paying into the government down to 11%, 10%, what the billionaires and the Fortune 500 companies, let's just do what they're doing. And, that's really what I'm trying to promote in this book. Let's do the same thing.
Yeah. The book, by the way, that Julio Gonzalez is talking about it's a great book. You can save money by reading this book, folks. Why Billionaires Love the Tax Code. The billionaires do take advantage of the special interest provisions, but what you're saying is they're available to everyone. They just don't know about it.
Everyone. And like you said, there's a good tip. Put more money into your IRA, your 401k.
Yeah.
That's a great way to bring that. The companies are doing that all the time with special programs for the CEOs and executives and putting retirement money into their programs. Look, another way, a lot of people, Steve, are working from home now and they can take home office expense, right? They're driving their cars to business appointments, take the mileage expense. And so a lot of benefits there. There's so many programs. Pay our children. A lot of people can pay their children and take that as a tax deduction. The kids don't have to pay, the children don't have to pay taxes on it under a de minimis amount. And now we can use that money for what we're going to pay for their schools, their supplies anyway, right? So you're just taking the expense, but moving it into a tax deduction.
It's funny you should mention that because my wife and I, when we were going over our income the other day and our expenses and our taxes, that's something she was saying that we should do. And you're saying that, with one of our remaining kids who's 19, we could basically bring him on as an employee.
Exactly. And you get the expense. It's probably going to be an amount where they're not going to be taxed on it. And it's a win-win for both of you, right? And maybe you're already giving that money to him in the way of buying expensive school, things of that nature, right? Allowance, right? Let's just make it an income salary.
Amazing. So these are great tips.
Right there.
And so do you think Julio, just last question on the way out, Julio Gonzalez is really an expert on this stuff. Do you think we're going to see tax reform in our lifetime? I mean, you and I worked together. You played a big role in the Big Beautiful Bill as we did at Unleash Prosperity. And it was a great team that you put together. What was the name of the group that you put together?
So we have the Economic Council, wonderful group.
Yeah. Really smart people, and it played a big role in getting that bill through the over the goal line, which was an amazing victory. Congratulations to you on what you did, and I know you've been a strong supporter of Donald Trump. You live right down the road from him, from Mar-a-Lago. But what is your, in our last minute, what is your assessment of that Big Beautiful Bill?
Well, it's been tremendous. Like you drop the taxable income right now. They're not taxed on tips, right? They're not taxed on Social Security. We got some big benefits for middle class America, and you made the tax code permanent in a lot of areas.
Right.
Because every year a small business owner, an individual, is waking up to a new tax code. This one's permanent. Oh my goodness. Good for the accounting firms, good for the individuals. Now you can plan. Remember, Steve, a lot of these businesses couldn't even plan because they didn't know what the tax code was going to be that year, and it's always changing.
It's so true. Well, folks, Julio Gonzalez is a hero. He helped make that that Big Beautiful Bill possible. And incidentally, I'm estimating that the average family is going to save Julio, about $2,500 to $3,000 a year next year, on their taxes because of that Big Beautiful Bill. Most people haven't really felt the impact yet of that tax cut.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing in the filings this year that it's about even a little bit higher than that, $3,500 the families are enjoying. So tremendous work. That's a huge raise for them, a huge raise.
Yeah. Well, get the book. You want to save money, folks? You want to save money on your taxes? You've got to get Julio Gonzalez's best-selling book, Why Billionaires Love the Tax Code. He is one of the top financial tax advisors in the country. Julio, I hope to see you soon. And thank you so much for what you did for President Trump on that bill. We'll be right back, folks. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. Having a fun time on a Saturday afternoon. Thanks so much for joining. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to be with you. It's the highlight of my week, and I hope you enjoy the show as well. I try to bring on as interesting guests as we can possibly find, and also back from by popular demand is Baiju Kulakathal, who is one of the most interesting people I know. He is a serial entrepreneur and has started many very successful companies, including Redbox, which, you may recall from the video days. You could go and when you were getting your McDonald's hamburger, you were going to the 7-Eleven, you could get a video. That was back in the days of DVRs. And Baiju has started many successful companies, but the reason I wanted to bring him back was to talk about the future of technology with respect to robotics, AI, the amazing things that are coming our way. And Baiju is the CEO of a new company that I am an investor in and a partner in, small partner in, called Lightspeed. And tell Baiju what Lightspeed is and how it's going to change the world.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve, and great to be back on your show. Excited to talk about this. So, I think we're in an interesting time in America. I think we've got some great opportunities, but we're also in the very early innings of this great revolution in AI. I think there are a lot of people who are consumers of ChatGPT and Claude and all these other AI tools, which, they play with in the virtual world, which is, they use it to write essays, write emails, analyze long documents and all of that. And that's great. And I think that's just the beginning of that play. But Lightspeed is in the world of what I call physical AI, where AI affects the physical world, and that is basically using AI models to do physical labor. And I think basically Lightspeed is a robotics and AI company. We're based out of Chicago, and we basically automate parts of building a home. Our idea is to dramatically reduce the time it takes to build a home, increase the quality in building a home, but also reduce the cost. These are three of the major things that we're working on. And the last thing I'll say to that too is that it's much safer to build a home using automation and robotics. So we're just in this we're just in this phase where we're kind of making dramatic changes to that and solving what I call like the housing crisis in America.
I just want to, I'm talking to Baiju, who is the founder of Lightspeed, which is an amazing company, builds houses with robots, which is an amazing technology. Want to just alert you all that in about 10 minutes, I will be taking your calls in the last few minutes of the More Money Show. So if you want to weigh in with your opinion on any of the topics we've talked about in these last couple hours, please call in 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222. I'd love to hear your opinion of these things. So, Baiju, this is really exciting stuff, what you're talking about. I've seen the videos. I've been in your factory there where you have the robots making these structures for the homes, and it is going to reduce the cost of building a new home. It's going to build them faster, and it's just an amazing thing to see. And you're the first one out there with this technology. So how soon do you think you'll be able to be building houses?
Yeah, so we've built a few, but we're in the very early sort of pilot stages of this. So we're rolling out our technology in some of the sort of larger pilots, and so we're just trying to get more data points on making this work. But I think by the end of next year, you're going to start seeing changes in the market where we'll be building to the hundreds and thousands of these homes. And effectively use that data to improve the product, reduce the price, and have a bigger outreach in the market. I mean, at the end of the day, right, we are I think short about 6 or 7 million homes in this country. It dramatically affects affordability, attainability. So our goal is if we can get to enough homes that we build out there where we can kind of create a tipping point in the market where this automation becomes more widespread in the market. I think that's how we'll solve the affordability crisis in America for homes. I
couldn't agree more. There's a housing shortage right now, but if the robots can build the houses and they can build them faster and cheaper, it will make new homes for young people. Like I have 3 young sons that are, just in that stage of their life where they're looking at buying a house. And right now, and they're doing well. They're doing well in terms of their careers, but they cannot afford to buy a house.
Absolutely right. It's basically it used to be a house went from costing $50,000 in the 1950s to about $400,000 now, right? And that's become very unaffordable for the average American. And the only way we always solve problems in America is by using technology to improve productivity in how these things are done. That's why we have I think cheaper food compared to 100 years ago. And we have a lot of other, even the phone I'm calling you on is a combination of probably 10 different machines that were available, that were expensive for the average person to buy 30 years ago, but they're affordable now because because of productivity, because of advances in technology, they're available in one device. And I think the same, it's going to happen with housing. And the big unlock for us, Steve, was really AI. AI is basically allowing us to do these things in the physical world. This all seems like science fiction, but with these advances in AI and robotics, we'll effectively see science fiction become science fact. That's exciting.
When I was a kid, I used to watch the cartoon, The Jetsons. I don't know if you're familiar with that cartoon, because I know you grew up in India. But, that's a very futuristic cartoon. And, people would get in their their flying cars and go all over the place and so on. And you and I had a discussion a few weeks ago about this whole issue of flying cars. And you were saying you thought this will come, that flying cars are coming. When do you think we'll start to see that, huge advance in technology?
No, I mean, again, these things are here. They're here. They're flying. They're operating. The only thing we have the technology's there. It's just a matter of regulation. We're just waiting for regulation, some data points to catch up. So there's a public company called Archer. There's another company called Joby. There are probably like 30 or 40 flying car companies. They call it eVTOL, which is electrical vertical takeoff and landing.
Are they like flying helicopters? What are they?
Yeah, they're effectively you could say they're like a little helicopter, but instead of having one blade to lift you up, most of these are designed from the electric standpoint of having like 5, 6, 8, 10 different little rotors to take you up and down.
Yeah. So in other words, hold on just a sec, so people understand. Yeah. So in other words, you don't need a runway for these. They would just elevate you, and then you're off in the air. Is that how they work?
That's exactly right. You can basically vertically take off and land. So you don't need the runway. You have a lot more places you can take off and land from.
Right.
And so that makes it much more accessible. But the technology is here. It's just in the early days, but it's going to catch on. I think it's going to, at a certain point, this is how we will basically, go from the city to the airport, or from one city to another city 100 miles away. This is how we're going to do it.
And obviously I was talking, when last time you and I were on, you're already seeing a lot of cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, the Ubers and the lifts that pick you up are now automated where there's no driver. You're seeing now on some of the highways automated trucks where there's no driver. They're just all being basically driven by artificial intelligence. This revolution, it seems to me, is coming a lot faster than Americans are prepared for.
That's right. I think with every revolution and change, right, there's always going to be short-term pain and long-term gains, right? So
right.
The short-term pain and change in anything is there is always pain around change, and it's hard for people. It's hard for the average person. It's important to be empathetic towards that. It's important to understand that, and it's important to see how we can address those changes, right? And we've gone through. But the good thing is we've gone through many changes as America like that. We went through a country where 100 years ago, 30% of this country worked in a farm. About 70 years ago, 30% of this country worked in a factory. And those numbers are all completely different right now. But at the end of the day, on the long term, the fact that we don't have 30% of the country working in a farm is a net benefit to us as Americans. And the fact that we don't actually have to do all the minute physical things to build things in factories. Like, we're going to bring manufacturing back to America. We're going to build, we're going to have a revolution in home building in America, all because of this automation. And I think at the end of the day, we should look at, is this benefiting us in the long term? And for me, I'm just a future optimist. I think it always is.
So one last question on the way out. We literally have 60 seconds left about you, and he is the founder of Lightspeed. If you want to find out more about it, people can go to your website, right?
Right. They can come to our website, lightspeed.build, or they could find us on LinkedIn, which is the social network website we're on most actively.
My last question for you in our last 45 seconds. What is your advice to young people then, maybe going into college or coming out of college, in terms of, the workforce and the work demands are going to change so dramatically. How do young people get ready for that?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that as a young, if I were 22, which I'm not, but if I was 22, I would embrace the AI as a tool. Like, it's AI, these AI and robotics, they're not things that they will itself not replace you, but somebody else using it as a tool will replace you if you can't compete with that person using AI. So use it as a tool. It is the tool to help you succeed. It is not, it's not something you should be afraid of.
I completely agree with that, and we better be ready for this. By the way, it's wealth enhancing. It will make Americans much, much wealthier over the next 20 and 50 years. Baiju, thanks so much for joining. Folks, when we get back, we will be taking your calls in our last 15 minutes of the show. I want to hear what you have to say about all this stuff, whether it's the AI revolution, whether it's a gambling crisis. That number for our More Money hotline, one last time, 1-800-848-9222. I'm told there are two lines open right now, 1-800-848-9222. Call in and let me know what you think about any of these ideas. This is the More Money Show, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are number one, folks. We were number one. By the way, that book is still selling really well. And if you want to get a good stocking stuffer for your family members and your friends for Christmas, can you believe it? It's almost November already. Get a great book that I wrote with Arthur Laffer, one of the greatest economists in the country. And it is called The Trump Economic Miracle. And by the way, the person who came up with that title was Donald Trump. When Arthur Laffer and I were meeting with Donald Trump in the Oval Office, and the previous title we had, the working title, he didn't like. He said, call it The Trump Economic Miracle. And how are we going to say no to the president? Okay, we've got a bunch of people on the line. And before we get to them, and I'm going to try to get through as many of these calls as I can, I just wonder what you think about this technology revolution that I was talking with Baiju about, what's going to go on with the robots building the homes. Robots are going to be doing construction work. Robots will be we're going to have driverless cars sometime, probably in the next 20 years, that it'll be like the Jetsons. Remember that show, The Jetsons, where you get in this little bubble thing and it'll whisk you away wherever you want to go. It is coming so rapidly. And I want to make sure that young people are getting educated enough to be able to take advantage of this. It is going to change the way we work, we travel, we play. And it's going to be an amazing revolution. And get ready for this, folks, because it is coming. It is coming to a town near you. All right, let's get started here. Richard from the Bronx, what have you got for us, Richard?
Good afternoon, Steve. About an hour ago, you were speaking about energy sources.
Yes.
And you mentioned wind and solar.
Yes.
Now, wind and solar are not viable, and they probably never will be.
I agree.
Because they are not available 24/365.
That's absolutely 100% correct. The problem with wind and solar, and by the way, if you live in Phoenix, Arizona, it may make good sense to put a solar panel on your roof, because you can get a lot of free energy from solar. If you live in a very windy place, it may make sense to do to have windmills. But in most areas of the country, it's not going to work, and it is not scalable, and it's not reliable, Richard.
Yes. And even if you live in Phoenix, Arizona, the sun only shines during the daytime.
That's true, too.
You're going to have to use, and during the nighttime, you're going to have to use traditional energy sources.
True. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And, I was on CNN a few months ago and we were debating about this, and, that all these people said, this is, these are the energy sources of the future. I'm like, wait a minute. They were using windmills back in the Middle Ages. We've moved past windmills towards natural gas, nuclear power, oil, things that are much, much more efficient, maybe geothermal. I'm not an expert on that, but I do not believe the future is windmills and solar. Great call, Richard. You're 100% correct, my friend. Let us go with Mark in New Jersey.
Steve, if Mr. Mondame gets elected in New York, which seems to be very possible, what's going to happen with municipal bonds? Who's going to buy them? And what percentage is it going to be?
That is a great question. I'm not an expert on this, but I don't think I'd want to buy. Let me just put it simply. I wouldn't be investing in New York municipal bonds right now under that scenario. I'm not here to take sides in the election. I know many people are great fans of Mamdani. I think his economic policies are questionable. We don't get too involved in this, but in that scenario, you are quite correct to raise that flag that maybe you don't want to be buying New York bonds. And if you listen to the show earlier, I noted that we have these at Unleash Prosperity, the group I run, we have billboards all over the state of New York and New Jersey about all the people that are leaving. And it's people are moving out. Moving up, as Billy Joel said, they are moving out. And it is a great crisis of the Northeast, and investing and electing more socialists is not the solution. Great point, Mark. Okay, let's try to get to some of these other callers. By the way, we have one or two lines open on the More Money hotline, 1-800-848-9222 or 1-800-848-WABC. Let's see, who do we have next? Well, let's go to Linda. We need a woman's advice here.
Hi, Steve, and happy anniversary.
Thank you. We made it to 10 years, defying all the odds.
I know.
And by the way, Linda, I got to tell you, I'm an impossible person to live with. So my wife is a saint that she's put up with me for 10 years. And marriage isn't easy. Are you married, Linda?
No, I'm not. And I was hoping one of those artificial things won't try to date me. Listening to that's scary.
Yeah, the robots.
Can I say what I called for? Wait, no, I can't keep on, taking up your time. I just wanted to say that congratulations, you were right, we were right. Everybody was saying the opposite, and you were the only one I called and told you that you were the only honest one I heard, telling the truth. I heard it this morning that it's official. The interest rate has come down all the way down on its own. They didn't have to be yelling about the Fed. Fed doesn't have to do anything. Now, if it goes down any lower, we're going to then the inflation will go up, and the dollar is now in trouble. We all, no matter where you move, wherever you live, any state, you're still going to have your dollar all the way down. So what good is being a billionaire, right?
Yeah. But I think, you know what, Linda, great call. I think the dollar is going to start appreciating as Donald Trump's pro-growth economic policies kick in. I've been somewhat surprised, and I don't have a great explanation why the dollar fell, except for the fact that the markets don't like the tariffs that much. But you know what? They love the trade deals, and Trump is delivering to a great extent on that. Okay. Who's next, Mr. Producer? Who should we go to next?
Let's go to Jay in New Jersey.
Jay in New Jersey. What have you got for us, Jay? Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Hey, Steve. You're talking about people leaving New Jersey, and I'm over here, and, people are leaving, and it's largely...
Wait, hold on, Jay. Where do you live?
Yeah, I'm in Hudson County.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, well, the high tax is driving people out in multitudes.
Yes.
And people have to understand, I want to remind my fellow New Jerseyans that we have an election coming up with, I know you don't want to get involved, but early voting started today, and the Democrat, Mikey Farrell, has refused to commit to not raising taxes.
I know.
So New Jersey has appalling taxes already. Just look at our property tax.
Yes.
And to have somebody running for the governorship and refusing to commit to not raising taxes should raise alarm bells in every New Jerseyan's head, because we got to be careful of who we take the power, because,
Jay, it is a great point you're making. Thank you for calling. I've tried to be the Pied Piper on this message that New Jersey, as Jay was just saying, is one of the highest tax states in the country. I think it's the third or fourth highest tax state, and people are leaving places where taxes are high. You just heard my conversation with Julio Gonzalez, the tax expert, who said people are moving out of high tax places, and they can move to Florida, and they can move to Texas, and they can move to Tennessee, and they can move to other places where income taxes are zero or close to zero. So why would you pay, 12, 13% in a place like New Jersey or New York when you pay zero in places in the South? And that is what is happening. New York has lost $500 billion in income over the last 10 years. New Jersey has lost over $100 billion in income. They're being bled to death, folks. It's moving van economics. It's happening. And if the people, I'm not telling you who to vote for. I am agnostic about who you vote for. I'm just saying you should find out whether these people are going to raise your taxes. Are they going to raise the regulation? Are they going to provide school choice, improve the schools in your community? Those are the kinds of things you should be asking yourself. And if you are a resident of New York or New Jersey, you have an obligation, in my opinion, to get out there and vote and have your voice heard. Do we still have Rick in Mount Vernon?
No, but we have Bob in Riverhead.
Bob, thanks so much for calling in.
Hey, Steve. Two questions, but you were talking about the robotics company. And as we move more and more into AI and these types of technical fields, I wonder about the people that just don't have the brain capacity to keep up, and how many people will be left behind, and what do we do with them? And part two is, if Madami gets in, what do you think happens to real estate in New York, the values?
What do you think?
Well, I think they're going to be impacted.
I do too.
For sure.
Listen, again, I'm not trying to tell people how to vote. We are very assiduous at WABC for not taking, positions in political races. All I'm saying is that if taxes are raised, that is going to negatively affect real estate values in New York. There's and it'll be potentially quite negative. So, make the right choice, folks. I'll just remind people that when Rudy Giuliani came in, he cut taxes, he reduced the regulations, he cleaned up the city, he got rid of a lot of the crime, and the city made an amazing comeback. New York City needs an amazing renaissance, and it can happen, but it ain't going to happen through socialism, because somebody got to show me somewhere where socialism worked. Folks, we're coming to the end of the show. We just got 1 or 2 minutes left. I just want to, first of all, thank everybody for making this show a success. We've been now at it now for almost 4 years. And it is, so I love it when people come up to me and they tell me they listen to the More Money Show. It's fun for me. I learn a lot from listening to you. And I'm going to say it one more time before we go off the air. This is a big election in New Jersey. It's a big election for New York City. You can't keep losing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Go to votewithyourfeet.net. Will you do that for me, folks? Go to votewithyourfeet.net. This is a website we put together. We have all the IRS data. We have all of the data on how much income people have that have left. And they're moving to Florida and Texas. I can't tell you when I fly to New York and Texas. When I fly to Florida, when I fly to Tennessee, I was just in Knoxville last week. I see a lot of New Jersey and New York license plates. People have moved because they cannot stand the high taxes. Now, of course, you need taxes to pay for government services, but do you need an income tax? You want to see a renaissance in New York and New Jersey? You want to see New York and New Jersey make the greatest comeback ever in the history of the country? How is this? Get rid of your income tax. Why don't you be more like Florida and Texas and compete? Because when you pay 14% in New York and 12% in New Jersey and you can pay 0, it's just math. People are leaving because they want to save money. Why is that so hard for politicians to understand? I don't get it. I don't understand why this simple math is so hard for politicians. And if you're going to give away stuff for free, if everything's going to be free in New York City, who the hell is going to pay for it? The federal government will not bail out New York. It will not bail out New Jersey. It will not bail out these liberal areas of the United States. I guarantee the federal taxpayers are not coming to your rescue. You have to rescue yourself, folks. Okay. This has been the More Money Show. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back same bat time, same bat channel next week. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
If If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.